In 1947, the world saw India as a country that might not survive. No industry, no infrastructure, no unity, just scars of partition and a broken economy. Winston Churchill, the Prime Minister of United Kingdom, said that India is merely a geographical expression, not a country. Indians are not fit to rule, they're only fit to be ruled. But 78 years later, that expression has become the fourth largest economy in the world. We have built the world's fastest growing digital payment system, pulled 270 million people out of poverty in just 11 years, and built more highways per day than most countries build in a year. Now, all that said, India does have its problems, which I have already covered in a previous video. This video is not about that. In this video, we will cover and celebrate 7 incredible things that India has done over the last 78 years of independence. At the end of the video, by the way, there is a great poem that I came across and added some of my own lines to. So do check that out as well and stick till the end. In 1947, over 70% of India's population was below the poverty line. Children died young and hunger haunted most homes. Famines were very common in our country, but through decades of determined policy from land reforms and rural employment to direct benefit schemes, infrastructure and green revolution, that story has completely changed. With the green revolution, farmers of a country got richer. Welfare schemes like Manrega, Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment and Guarantee Act helped guarantee rural employment to the poorest sections of society at a minimum wage. Finally, economic liberalization of 1991 led to massive job creation in IT, telecom, manufacturing and the service sector. For each of these jobs, there were even more secondary jobs created. Think about it. For instance, when a new IT or telecom company sets up its headquarters or when housing is built for its employees, it triggers a boom in the real estate sector, for instance. This in turn creates jobs for construction workers, site managers, architects and engineers. Demand for materials like steel and cement surge as well, boosting employment in those industries. The same happens with retail, hospitality, services and every other sector. Further, for every executive hired in these firms, there is a job of a house help, a cook and a driver that gets created. The growth isn't limited to offices and factories. It extends everywhere and supports the entire Indian economy. As a result, between 2005 and 2021 alone, over 415 million Indians escaped multi-dimensional poverty, according to United Nations Development Programme. Toilets reached rural homes, roads connected remote villages, women opened bank accounts for the first time. India didn't just reduce poverty, it attacked its roots. And in doing so, it achieved what few thought possible: the fastest poverty decline in recorded human history. Poverty rates have come down from over 70% to under 5.3%. We didn't just fight poverty, we dismantled it, village by village, generation by generation. Now moving to the second point, how India transformed from a food importer to a food exporter. There was a time India couldn't feed itself. Famines claimed millions of lives. In the 1960s, India was forced to accept food aid from the US. It was a period marked by scarcity, struggle, and a sense of helpless dependence. But then came the Green Revolution, and it changed everything. High-yield crops, irrigation, better fertilizers, and farmer education turned India from a food deficit country into the world's second largest producer of rice, wheat, fruits, and vegetables. Today, we don't just feed our 1.4 billion citizens, we export food to over 100 countries. In fact, now we give food aid to countries in need. In just 2 generations, India went from famine to food surplus, from dependence to dominance. The begging bowl was replaced by granaries. That's not just economic progress, that's national pride. The world once fed us. Now we feed the world. That said, let's move from farms to corporate offices. How we built a globally competitive tech industry. In the 1990s, India's presence in global tech was almost non-existent. Today, Indian IT services power businesses across continents. With nearly $400 billion in annual exports and 5 million professionals, India has become the back-end office of the world. Companies like Infosys, TCS, Wipro and thousands of startups now solve global tech problems from Indian soil. So how did this happen? It started with a few bold policy changes. It started with the IT revolution in 1984 when the computer and software policy was introduced. Do remember that this was the time of license Raj, and prior to this, imports were heavily taxed. This policy allowed for duty-free imports of advanced computers, and this in turn allowed us to build software development capabilities. Further, in 1986, the government announced software as a key area of exports and started promoting software exports. The 1991 liberalization dismantled the license Raj, allowed foreign investments, and encouraged private enterprises. In parallel, India had already begun investing heavily in technical education. Institutions like IITs and NITs were producing world-class engineers. We were at the right place at the right time. Just then, the Y2K crisis unexpectedly opened global doors. Western companies looking for cost-effective and skilled talent turned to India. Why India? Because we had the perfect mix. A large pool of English-speaking engineers, relatively low costs, and an adaptive problem-solving mindset. Time zone advantages allowed Indian teams to work while the West was asleep. And once the outsourcing boom began, it built its own momentum. Global corporations started setting up captives in Bangalore, Hyderabad, Pune, and Gurgaon. Over time, the industry matured. Indian IT moved up the value chain, from data entry and back-end support to software development, cloud computing, AI, and cybersecurity. Thousands of startups emerged. Global tech firms began hiring Indian talent, not just for support, but as leaders. Today, Indian origin CEOs run Google, Microsoft, Adobe, IBM, and many other companies. From Bangalore to Silicon Valley, the Indian coder is no longer a support act. They're at center stage. India didn't just join the tech revolution, it helped lead it. Our science and engineering prowess is not limited to corporate headquarters. It also helped us dominate the space race. There was a time when India had no rockets, no satellites, and no space agency. In the 1960s, when much of the world was racing to the moon, India was still struggling to feed its people. Our scientists had to launch early space equipment on bicycles and bullock carts. We didn't have the resources, but we had the vision. And so, with nothing but belief and brain power, India laid the foundation of what would become one of the world's most cost-effective and innovative space programs. We launched our first satellite, Aryabhatta, in 1975 with the help of the Soviet Union. It was a modest beginning, but it proved that India could dream big in science. By the 1980s, we were launching weather and communication satellites. In 2008, Chandrayaan-1 discovered water molecules on the moon, a breakthrough that even NASA acknowledged. Then came Mangalyaan in 2014, our mission to Mars, built in just 18 months and costing only $74 million. It was cheaper than the Hollywood movie Martian on planet Mars. To top it all off, we reached Mars on our very first attempt, something that even the US and Russia couldn't achieve. In 2023, India stunned the world again. Chandrayaan-3 landed on the moon's south pole, becoming the first country ever to reach the unexplored destination. It wasn't just a landing, it was a statement. A nation that once was dependent on foreign rockets was now pushing boundaries of space exploration. Today, India builds its own rockets, designs satellites, and launches missions for dozens of countries. The journey from bullock carts to moon's south pole didn't come from massive spending. It came from discipline, innovation, and national will. India didn't just join the space race. We started at the back of the line and caught up with the frontrunners. We proved that when the mission is greater than money, even sky is not the limit. Next, we built a world-leading digital infrastructure. India didn't just adopt digital technology, it reimagined it at scale. With Aadhaar, the world's largest biometric identity system, over 1.3 billion Indians were given secure portable digital identity, something most developing countries still struggle to provide. But that was just the beginning. Next came UPI, a real-time zero-cost digital payment system that now processes over 10 billion transactions every month, outpacing the combined volumes of US, China, and Europe. Nearly 50% of all real-time digital transactions in the world now happen in India. We have turned smartphones into banks and enabled even street vendors to accept instant digital payments. Layer by layer, India built what is now called the India Stack, a unified public digital infrastructure. This includes DigiLocker for storing official documents, eKYC for instant identity verification, Jan Dhan Yojana for universal bank accounts, and DBT, direct benefit transfers, for delivering government subsidies directly to citizens. Together, these platforms didn't just make governance efficient, they made it inclusive and real-time. Millions who were previously invisible to the formal economy now have access to banking, credit, welfare, and digital services at the tap of a screen. By the way, I have something to share in this regard. I got my COVID vaccination in the UK, and we were given a vaccination card, which by the way, I have already lost. But in India, we were issued a digital certificate to prove that we've been vaccinated, which is impossible to lose basically. So while the so-called first world countries use paper, we went digital. While the advanced economies still debate how to build inclusive digital ecosystems, India quietly built one, and at unmatched scale and speed. It wasn't just digital transformation, it was digital empowerment. We didn't follow the world, we showed the world what's possible. The next big thing is a unity in extreme diversity. No other country has the kind of diversity India holds. 22 official languages, hundreds of dialects, all major religions, and thousands of castes and communities. India is the only country in the world where Jews were never persecuted, where Zoroastrians found refuge and not refusal, where all 73 sects of Islam exist, where anti-conversion laws are being requested by the majority and not the minorities. Every few hundred kilometers, India changes in food, dress, customs, and beliefs, and yet we have remained one nation, one constitution, and one democracy. Over 900 million people go to polls during elections, more than the population of most continents, let alone countries. India is not only the world's largest but also the most improbable democracy and also the most successful. Diversity doesn't divide us, it defines us. We speak in 1,000 tongues, pray in 100 ways, but beat with one heart. Lastly, we have become a global soft power. India's global influence isn't measured only in GDP or military strength. It is cultural, spiritual, and deeply human. From Bollywood films lighting up screens in Nigeria, Russia, and the Middle East to yoga studios in Manhattan and Munich, Indian ideas have quietly traveled farther than our army ever could. Ayurveda, spiritual philosophy, vegetarianism, and Indian cuisine have become global movements. The International Day of Yoga, now celebrated in over 190 countries, stands as a strong symbol of India's peaceful global presence. Meanwhile, Indian classical music, dance, and literature are studied in conservatories, universities, and art festivals across the world. But India's global soft power isn't just about tradition, it is about relevance. In a world grappling with anxiety, alienation, and extremism, India offers something different: balance, depth, and color. We are not exporting fear, division, or terrorism. We're exporting wisdom, joy, and a way of life. India's voice in global diplomacy is also growing stronger as a bridge builder, peace advocate, and a voice for the global south. While others colonize lands, India has quietly colonized the global imagination. In a fractured world, we are a soft power in its purest form. Alright, now I didn't intend to talk about challenges in this video, but there are two that I really need to mention. Two that we as Indians really need to work towards. The first and a big one is our complete lack of civic sense. Just look at these clips. We drive on the wrong side of the road, we litter everywhere, we destroy public property, we treat rules like suggestions and treat humans like they don't even matter. We don't know when to use high beam, so we use it all the time. There's a street light here in Gurgaon, by the way, that's always on during the day and sometimes off at night. रात को लाइट क्यों ही चाहिए, राइट? सोने का टाइम होता है. It just seems as if after years of famines and malnourishment, कुछ तो missing है यहाँ पे. Basic awareness, common sense, respect for shared spaces, totally lacking. And then we have the audacity to complain. We urgently need a civic awakening, not just better infrastructure, but a better mindset. We owe it to ourselves. The second challenge, and an equally important one, is that there is a desperate need for us to upskill ourselves. Here are a few stats for you. 73% of youth lacks basic emailing skills. Only 42.6% of Indian graduates are employable. 25% of 14 to 18-year-olds enrolled in school can't read class 2 texts properly. You get the idea. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. There is a very real need for us to heavily focus on skill-driven education. We desperately need to work on these two challenges in order to truly realize and live up to our potential. We need to go back to what we used to be, the greatest civilization. We gave the world concepts like zero, the decimal system, grammar, yoga, Ayurveda, and some of the most profound philosophies ever written. We alone were a third, 33% of global economy. So getting back to what Winston Churchill once said, India is merely a geographical expression, not a country. Indians are not fit to rule, they are fit to be ruled. I'm sure what the world and surely Winston Churchill forgot is that we are the longest surviving continuous civilization on earth. When their ancestors were learning how to hunt with sticks, we were building cities with drainage systems and writing in symbols that the world still can't decode. So, no, India was never just a geographical expression. It is a civilizational force that outlived every empire that tried to mock it, be it the Islamic invasions or the Europeans. A little poem on the same as we had discussed and I had promised before. I am Bharat, the divine anthem of India's eternal spirit. Some call me Hodu, some call me Sindhu, some say Hind, while others whisper Al Hind. To some, I am Tenjiku, the land of heaven. To others, Tiangshu, the land of God. Some know me as Aryavat, the land of noble, some as Jamdui, the ancient island of legends. Some call me the land of Dharma, Gyagar, and to some, I am the sacred land, Tanatar. Through the echoes of ancient civilizations, I have been called by many names. Empires have risen and fallen upon my soil. My rivers have nurtured the oldest wisdom. I have been looted, invaded, divided, ruled, and rewritten, but never erased. My spirit remains unbroken, my essence immortal. I'm not just a country, I'm a civilization, older than time, deeper than history, and far too vast to be understood by colonizers with maps and guns. This is India. This is Bharat. Not rising, but returning. Not an emerging power, but an eternal one. A land reborn, not reimagined.